My wife joked she'd cheat if she'd never get caught. I exposed her secret affairs, triggered my silent exit plan, and ended our marriage forever. Monica tipped her wine glass toward the candlelight, swirling the deep red liquid as if she were preparing a toast. Dennis watched the spiral, not the wine, but her hand. How it danced too easily these days. Light, flirty, careless. It had taken years for her to stop biting her nails. Now they were perfect, French manicured. She said it was for work. Impressions matter in HR, she had told him. She had just served the second course. Stuffed mushrooms from a Pinterest recipe she had tried once before 2 years ago, when she was still trying to impress him. Tonight, the effort wasn't for him. He knew that by the garnish, parsley. She always said he hated parsley. But there it was, sprinkled like confetti across his plate. She took a long sip, eyes glinting, and then it came, mid-mouthful, as if the words had been sitting on her tongue for days. I'd totally cheat if I knew I wouldn't get caught. She laughed, a breathy, unbothered sound that floated above the table like steam. Dennis didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't look at her. He simply placed his fork down, gently, precisely, then stood up. No questions, no yelling, no begging for context. No pretending to misunderstand. He walked down the hall like a man headed to a meeting. And in a way he was. The bedroom door closed with a soft click of finality. Monica blinked, her smile twitching, unsure whether she had won a point or struck a nerve. She poured another glass, muttering something about him being touchy. She didn't know that Dennis had stopped being touchy 10 years ago. That something in him had been quietly logging, indexing, cataloging every joke like tonight's. Not out of insecurity, but habit, pattern recognition. He didn't shout because he never needed to. Dennis didn't do chaos, he did code. And right now he was already executing a subroutine he'd built in his head months ago, maybe even years. By the time Monica stood up to clear the table, he had already chosen the objects. Not a knife, not a letter, not drama. Just a key. Her spare house key, the one she had given him when they first moved in, and a slim gray USB drive. The key now sat perfectly centered on her side of the bed. Next to it, the drive. Innocuous, silent, but inside it contained something sharper than any blade Monica could have imagined. Her own words, her own maps, her own synced betrayals. A few feet from that key was her phone backup log, not the data itself, just a printed table, dates, file sizes, sync locations, highlighted entries. No explanation needed. She wouldn't find it until later. For now, she finished her wine in the kitchen, annoyed at the silence. He's sulking again, she muttered under her breath. Jesus. But deep down, beneath the wine, the sarcasm, and the buzz of imagined superiority, something was beginning to curdle. Because for the first time in their 12-year marriage, Dennis hadn't argued. He hadn't asked for clarification. He hadn't asked for anything. And something about that, the precision of his exit, the way he walked without looking back, made the air around her start to press in. She was still smirking when she entered the bedroom 30 minutes later. The lights were off. The comforter was folded at the foot of the bed. That struck her as odd. Dennis always left it messy, said it was for airflow. Then she saw them, the key, the flash drive, and, propped against her alarm clock, a legal-sized manila envelope slightly open. Inside, barely visible in the dim light, were paper edges thick with ink, printed screenshots, highlighted text. She didn't scream. Not yet. But her hand tightened around the USB drive. And in the corner of her mind, between wine fog and bravado, Monica felt something icy start to snake around her ribs. Dennis hadn't threatened her. He'd handed her the first stone and let her realize she'd already built her own gallows. Dennis didn't pace. He didn't sweat. He moved like a man walking through a fire drill he'd memorized a year ago. The closet door opened without a sound. He reached above the winter coats and pulled down the unmarked shoebox Monica once joked about. "What are you, CAA?" She'd laughed. He hadn't answered then either. Inside were 2 old phones, charged, wiped clean months ago, then loaded again, not with his data but hers. One had been linked to her old iCloud account, the other had her Gmail synced via an app she never logged out of. He had found the breadcrumbs a year ago, when she was too busy mentoring new hires on weekends. Tonight, that prep work was no longer theoretical. The external drive sat waiting, 2 terabytes, partitioned by purpose, her words, my notes, and the middle. That last partition was Dennis's favorite. It contained overlapping GPS data, hers and his, placed on a time-lapse map. Dozens of pins, red for her, blue for him. Every time she claimed she was stuck in traffic or at Rachel's, the map told a different story. She hadn't been careful. She had just assumed he wasn't watching. She wasn't wrong. Until now. The printer kicked on at 9:37 p.m. sharp. Quiet hum. No alerts. Dennis had disabled notifications months ago. The first printout was a WhatsApp transcript, Monica and Greg discussing a canceled conference in Phoenix that never actually existed. There was a meme she sent him, something childish about work husbands. But Dennis's eyes locked on Greg's reply, "Imagine if he knew you called out sick just to come see me." Next came a confirmation email, 2 tickets to a jazz club in Baltimore, booked under her maiden name. Interesting touch, almost clever, almost. Then there was the voice memo buried deep inside a drive folder called HR Retreat 2022, a 4-minute audio clip. She hadn't known the voice recorder was on. At first, muffled laughter, clinking glasses, small talk. Then her voice cut through. "He's so focused on work he doesn't even notice. I could literally have sex on the living room floor, and he'd offer us coffee after." Dennis didn't rewind it. He didn't need to listen to the rest. He just clicked, dragged, and dropped it into the folder labeled for her. He created 3 folders total. Screenshots, GPS logs, that voice memo. A clean chronological PDF with annotations, no accusations, just timestamps. Printouts of financial accounts in his name only, statements showing transfers he'd made in the past 6 months. The new bank he'd opened across town, passwords changed 2 weeks ago. A neat file titled Post-Nup Enforcement. He'd remembered the document she signed 5 years ago after their second separation scare. She was terrified he'd leave then, so she agreed to a clause, infidelity equals forfeiture of joint assets. She never read the fine print. Dennis had it memorized. By 11:05, the folders were printed, labeled, and sealed into 3 separate envelopes. The one marked for her sat atop the manila envelope on her side of the bed. He added the USB, the house key. Nothing more. He didn't cry. He didn't tremble. He sat for a moment in the dark, watching the light under the dining room door flicker as Monica moved around, probably finishing dessert, probably rehearsing a joke about his tantrum for Rachel. In her mind, she still owned the room, still owned him. But the truth was, Dennis wasn't there anymore. He wasn't preparing revenge. He was finalizing his escape. And unlike Monica, he never needed to hide. It was almost midnight when Monica finally shut off the kitchen lights. She wasn't drunk exactly, just pleasantly buzzed, the way she always was when she thought she'd gotten away with something. She padded barefoot down the hallway, brushing imaginary lint off her silk pajama shorts, rehearsing the casual line she'd used to smooth things over. "You seriously got that upset over a joke? Babe, come on." The bedroom was dark when she opened the door, just as she expected. What she didn't expect was the silence. No soft breathing, no rustle of sheets. Dennis was a loud sleeper. Light snore, nasal whistle, little sighs that annoyed her more than she ever admitted. Tonight, there was none of it. She flicked on the side lamp. The bed was pristine. Not unmade. Pristine. The comforter was folded with military precision at the foot of the bed, like a hotel turn-down. Except this wasn't hospitality. It was a message. On her pillow sat 3 objects. First, the key. Her house key, the one she had given Dennis on their anniversary, back when she made a show of trust, back when she still cooked from scratch. He'd added it to his ring that same night. It had never left his pocket since. Until now. She tilted her head, half amused. "Oh, please," she mumbled. "What is this, a Lifetime movie?" Second object, a plain gray flash drive with a small strip of tape across the front. In Dennis's neat handwriting, "Try me." That one made her blink. Not because she feared what was on it yet, but because Dennis didn't do drama. He didn't make statements. He quietly absorbed, made charts, fixed routers. This felt like something else, like a provocation or a trap. Still, her reflex was mockery. "Cute," she said to the air, rolling her eyes. "Really leaning into the melodrama, huh?" She picked up the flash drive, twirling it between her fingers. Then she saw the third object, just past the edge of the pillow, tucked almost discreetly beside the lamp. A legal-sized manila envelope. Thick, heavy, no label, slightly open at the corner, revealing the edge of dense, dark, sharp-edged printed paper. She hesitated, not out of guilt, not yet, but because Dennis never left things unfinished, and this looked finished. Her buzz evaporated. She sat on the edge of the bed, still clutching the flash drive like it might explain itself. The envelope didn't scream revenge. It screamed receipt. She touched it. The paper inside was warm, literally, still fresh from the printer. That meant he'd been here less than an hour ago. And now he wasn't. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. No texts, no missed calls. No, I need space or we need to talk. Just nothing. She opened the envelope. Her stomach clenched before she even processed the first page. Screenshots. Pages of them. Full-resolution prints of WhatsApp chats, Messenger DMs, even some random third-party apps she barely remembered installing. All with names she recognized. Greg, Julian, Blake. Dates, locations, timestamps. Even a reservation for a work dinner at a rooftop lounge 2 months ago under a fake name. She turned to the second page. It was a transcript. Her own words in a group chat with Rachel and 2 others, all joking about husbands who think trust is loyalty instead of just low expectations. She stopped laughing. She flipped through the rest in a haze. Somewhere in the middle of the stack was a copy of the post-nuptial agreement. Her signature, his, date-stamped and notarized. Then came the spreadsheet. It wasn't dramatic, just data, line after line of account numbers, transfers, balances, and a quiet announcement. Your access has been revoked. Her hands started to shake. She rushed back to her phone, tried calling him, straight to voicemail, once, twice. Then she saw the banner at the top, call forwarding active. He'd already redirected everything. The house was still warm. His scent still hung in the bedroom air. But Dennis was gone. And for the first time in a long, long time, Monica was sober. Not from wine, but from delusion. From the illusion that she still held the upper hand. The flash drive sat in her lap. Try me. She suddenly wasn't so sure she wanted to. Monica set the flash drive down like it was radioactive. Her fingers tingled, not from nerves exactly, but something older, something animal. The creeping dread that comes when you realize the shadow you saw in the corner wasn't imagined. It was waiting, watching. She turned back to the envelope. The top sheet was simple, her full name in bold, centered. Below it, one sentence, you joked. I checked. No greeting, no accusation, just a heading. Below that, a table of contents, 6 sections, neatly labeled. 1. Messages. 2. Locations. 3. Financials. 4. Audio. 5. Photos. 6. Agreement. The first section hit like a slap. Page after page of screenshots organized by app. Messenger, WhatsApp, Signal, even Slack. Each printout had a header, date, time, contact name. The first was from Greg, the same Greg she swore was just a coworker. The timestamps told a different story. 10:04 a.m., 3:17 a.m., 5:42 a.m. One right before she crawled back into bed after a late Zoom call with Australia. Greg, I can still taste you. Monica, don't. I feel guilty. Greg, you said your husband would never find out. Monica, he's Dennis. He's allergic to confrontation. Monica's lips parted, but no sound came. She kept flipping. Every new message came with a deeper sting. These weren't flirty jokes. They were confessions, coordinates, plans. And all of them had been synced. Some through her old Google account, some through her work calendar. She hadn't been hacked. She'd been predictable. Then came Section 2, Locations. A side-by-side comparison of her GPS pings versus company travel records. One page highlighted a weekend she claimed to be visiting her sister in Chicago. Dennis had included a hotel confirmation, not for Chicago, for Denver, 2 nights, King Suite, under a fake name, but paid with a joint credit card. She swallowed. Her mouth had gone dry. Then the financials. Bank withdrawals at 2:31 a.m., in cities where she was supposedly at a leadership summit. Ride receipts for trips to and from bars miles from the convention centers, flagged dates matched to calendar invites, attached blurry screenshots of Facebook check-ins by her conference friends. They had tagged her. She never noticed. Then she saw the voice memo labeled HR 2022's M4A. She recognized the file name. It was from the retreat. Too many margaritas, one of those nights where she thought she was being charming, funny. The transcript lay printed below the label. Monica. He doesn't ask questions anymore. I swear I could sleep with someone on our damn couch and he'd still make me breakfast the next morning. Laughter. Monica again, that's the upside of marrying a man who lives in his head. You live in his blind spot. Her hands clenched. She looked around the room as if someone might still be watching. The house felt colder now. The silence pressed. The last section, Section 6, was just 3 pages stapled together. At the top, post-nuptial agreement executed July 14, 2018. She remembered the day vaguely. After a bad fight, she'd said she was sorry. He'd asked her to sign something to show her serious. She skimmed it while half watching TV, laughed when she signed it. She had no idea what it said. But now it was right there, highlighted in yellow. In the event of substantiated infidelity, the non-breaching party shall retain 100% control and ownership of all marital property, including but not limited to joint bank accounts, real estate holdings, and retirement assets. And beneath that, in her own handwriting, Monica L. Greer. Suddenly the air was too thick. She tried to stand but sat back down immediately. Her legs weren't working right. Nervous laughter escaped her mouth before she could stop it, a soft, panicked giggle that died just as quickly. She reached for her phone again, hoping for a text, a voicemail, something, some sign that this was just punishment, that she could beg, grovel, charm her way out. Still nothing. It was then that she noticed the smallest detail, and it nearly broke her. The folder that held the agreement, printed in high-resolution, crisp corners, had a crease, like it had been folded and unfolded many, many times. Dennis had been carrying it with him, maybe in his briefcase, maybe in his car, like a man carrying an umbrella under a clear sky. Not because he feared rain, but because he knew the storm was coming. And now it had arrived. Monica hadn't slept, not even for a second. She sat on the edge of the bed until the sky turned that ugly blue-gray. Her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Her thumb hovered over Dennis's name for nearly an hour before she sent the first message. 6:17 a.m. Dennis, can we talk? 6:18 a.m. I was kidding last night. Please don't do something stupid. Nothing. No read receipts. No typing bubble. Just the flat silence of messages disappearing into the void. She waited. Maybe he was driving. Maybe he just needed space. He was always slow to react. That was Dennis, measured, methodical. She told herself he was probably at a diner eating his boring toast and black coffee, waiting to calm down. But doubt creeps fast when the air is this still. At 6:31 she called him, straight to voicemail. The automated voice didn't even let it ring once. She hung up, waited 60 seconds, called again. Same result. She redialed obsessively for 10 minutes before noticing something strange. Her own name at the top of the screen had a small icon next to it, an arrow. Call forwarding. She opened the settings and her stomach flipped. The number listed was unrecognizable, a landline, area code from a nearby town. Dennis never used landlines. That meant he had set this up before the night even ended. He hadn't just left the house. He'd amputated her from the system. She scrambled to the laptop, fingers clumsy on the keyboard. Tried to log into their joint banking portal. Access denied. Reset password, verification failed. Tried the shared budgeting app she hated, but he insisted they keep. Account deactivated. She opened her email, the family account they used for bills, gone. Password changed. She tried to check the cloud folder where they stored insurance info. Empty. Everything was being pulled out from under her, one thread at a time. And the worst part, there were no warnings, no angry letters, no dramatic confrontations, just quiet, devastating erasure. She sprinted to the kitchen, grabbed the folder off the counter where Dennis used to leave bills and mail. Gone. Every paper, every document, even the checkbook. She pulled open drawers at random, desperate. He had taken every scrap of financial documentation. Even the fireproof safe was empty. She collapsed into the kitchen chair, phone in hand. Still nothing. So she tried again. 7:03 a.m. This is insane. I was joking. You're blowing everything out of proportion. 7:05 a.m. Dennis, please, can we just talk like adults? 7:11 a.m. I know I messed up. Just call me, please. I'm scared. But her texts were screaming into a canyon. No echo, no ping back. The man who had shared her life for 12 years, who'd brought her coffee while she feigned hangovers, who once typed up her resignation letter because she said her hands were too shaky, had gone ghost. Not like a coward, like an architect. Because this wasn't chaos, this was a blueprint. And she wasn't in it anymore. At 8:12 a.m., Monica sent Rachel a text. Can you talk? 10 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, at 8:41, her phone buzzed. Rachel, did you say that at dinner? In front of him? Monica's stomach dropped. She stared at the message like it was in another language. Rachel never texted like that. No emoji, no OMGs, no girl, just cold. She typed a reply, deleted it, typed again. It was just a joke. I didn't mean it. Seen. No response. Then 5 minutes later, a second message dropped in. He came by. Asked me one question. I couldn't lie for you. That was it. No explanation, no clarification, just silence. Monica's hand hovered over the call button, but she didn't press it. Something in her gut whispered, she won't answer. Not now. Instead, she tried Lisa, their weekend yoga buddy, her go-to gossip partner. Hey, rough night. Can I crash at yours? Read. No reply. She tried Emily, her coworker, the one who always called Dennis cute in a nerdy way. Need a ride to the office? No response. Then she tried calling Greg. Straight to voicemail. She threw her phone across the couch, resisting the urge to scream. This wasn't normal. These people weren't ignoring her. They were acting like they'd seen a ghost. And that ghost was wearing Dennis's face. She sat in the silence, trying to reverse engineer the damage. Dennis had gone to Rachel. When? How? What did he ask? And what did Rachel give him? The voice memo. She thought of it again. The transcript, her words. I could sleep with someone on our damn couch and he'd still make me breakfast the next morning. Had Rachel heard it? Had he played it? Monica had always assumed Dennis was passive, that he would bottle things, bury them, maybe one day explode in some benign way, an affair of his own perhaps, or a midlife sports car. She never imagined this. This was not the reaction of a man scorned. This was a man in strategy mode. He wasn't just walking away. He was pruning her world, cutting her off, not just from him but from everyone she thought she could fall back on. She checked Facebook. Her account was still active, but her last 3 photos had new comments. One of them, a beach picture from 2 months ago, her in a sundress, tagged in Baltimore, had a new like from Dennis's sister, someone Monica hadn't spoken to in years. Below it, a comment from an account she didn't recognize. Funny how lies always leave shadows. The pit in her stomach sank lower. She pulled up Messenger, typed Rachel's name. The app glitched for a second, then showed a red exclamation point. Can't deliver. Blocked, blocked, blocked. She tried 3 more names. All gone. Dennis hadn't just pulled the financial rug out. He had dismantled the net beneath it, and he'd done it silently, without threats, without tantrums, like a man taking out the trash, one bag at a time. And now Monica sat in a quiet house, surrounded by pillows, pictures, and things that used to mean something, and realized she'd been evicted from her own life. Not with a bang, but with absence. The security guard gave her that look. Not the one that said you're not allowed here, but worse, the one that said, we both know what this is. Monica had been standing outside the lobby of Dennis's office building for nearly 40 minutes. No umbrella, no plan, just a sinking sense of purpose and a jacket 2 sizes too thin for the rain that had started 10 minutes ago and showed no sign of stopping. She ignored the glances from passers-by. She didn't care that her heels were soaked or that her blouse was starting to cling. None of that mattered. He always left around 5:30. She remembered because she used to joke about how predictable he was. Right now she was counting on it. At exactly 5:33, the glass doors hissed open. And there he was, Dennis, her husband. Hair slightly damp, briefcase in hand, same gray coat he always wore when the weather dipped. Except now he looked taller, colder, like a man walking out of a fire he hadn't bothered warning her about. She stepped forward too quickly, almost slipping on the wet concrete. Dennis. He stopped. Didn't flinch, didn't soften, just looked at her like she was a contractor he hadn't hired, standing in his way. I need to explain, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. A pause, then quiet and measured. I don't think you do. It hit like a slap. Her breath caught. For a moment she just stood there, blinking raindrops off her lashes. I didn't mean it like that, she stammered. You know I was joking, I swear. He didn't raise his voice, didn't lean in, just stepped back when she moved forward, avoiding her hand like it might stain him. I didn't leave because of the joke, he said calmly. I left because you meant it. Monica's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He looked past her, as if she were just another pedestrian waiting for a cab. Then, he walked around her, not away from her, through her, as if she had already become air, as if his grief had expired long before this moment. And all that was left now was clean, practiced distance. She turned to follow, but the doorman stepped in, not forcefully, just politely, which somehow made it worse. Ma'am, he said, already looking past her. He asked that we not allow visitors after hours. Her mouth twitched like she might argue. But what was she going to say? That she used to be his emergency contact? His wife? His everything? None of that mattered now. Not here. She stepped back onto the sidewalk where the rain fell harder than she remembered. Her mascara had begun to sting her eyes. She could feel her soaked blouse plastered to her skin. A man in a suit walked past, gave her a sympathetic glance, and kept moving. She looked down at her phone. Still nothing. No missed calls, no unread messages, no digital breadcrumbs of forgiveness. For a moment she thought about waiting again, just camping there until he came back out. Maybe he'd forget something. Maybe he'd turn around. But the cold started to bite, and the pitying glances from strangers made it unbearable. She stood still as the city moved around her, dripping, half-shaking, mascara running in ugly streaks. Then, for the first time since it all began, Monica understood. Dennis hadn't ghosted her. He hadn't run away. He had simply finished. And she had missed the ending. By the time Monica stepped into her office the next morning, the building already felt different, too quiet. She scanned her badge at the glass turnstile. It buzzed like always, but this time no green light, no click, just red. Access denied. She blinked, tried again. Still red. She glanced at the receptionist, who gave her a stiff smile, the kind that meant something's happening. But I'm not allowed to say what. Technical issue, Monica muttered, already dialing the internal help desk. No answer. She left a message, trying to sound casual, though the edges of her voice were fraying. Then she took the stairs. By the time she reached the 8th floor, her silk blouse clung to her back with sweat. HR sat like a fortress at the end of the hallway. Frosted doors, polished furniture. She knocked. One of the coordinators, Paula, opened the door, eyes flicking up with something between surprise and discomfort. Monica, can you wait in the small conference room, please? Why? What's going on? But Paula was already turning. Inside that room, Monica's mind started spinning. She had known this might happen. Dennis wasn't impulsive. If he planned this, he wouldn't just take the house and money. He'd take her standing in the HR world she herself had built. She knew the clause by heart. She had helped write it. Moral conduct violations, including extramarital affairs impacting workplace relationships or performance, are grounds for immediate review and possible dismissal. She tried to get ahead of it. The night before, she had composed a carefully worded email to her division head. There's a personal situation developing. I want to be transparent in case you hear something out of context. She hadn't sent it. She wanted to sleep on it. Too late. The door opened 15 minutes later. Not her manager, not the director. 2 people from corporate HR and a sealed envelope. Monica, one of them said without sitting. We've received documentation that requires immediate review. Her heart rate tripled. They slid a printed email across the table. Subject line. For your review regarding employee Monica Greer from Dennis Greer. Attached, 13 PDF files. Cross-checked expense reports from company cards, hotel receipts, call logs from business trips, screenshots of text messages arranging off-site meetings during office hours, photos from public social media accounts, her, Greg, and another colleague, taken during a sick leave week. Each file was titled, time-stamped, and annotated, the entire timeline of her lies. Dennis had structured it like a corporate audit, the way she used to back when she still cared. She barely heard the rest. Something about administrative leave, something about pending further investigation, something about the code of conduct she used to enforce on others. Her badge, they explained, had already been deactivated at 3:42 a.m., 19 minutes before she even left the house that morning. She wasn't suspended. She was done. She tried to laugh, but no sound came. Just a nod, a blank stare, a quiet rage at herself for underestimating the man she once dismissed as harmless, forgettable, predictable. She used to joke that Dennis wouldn't survive a week in corporate politics. Turns out she was wrong. Dennis didn't need to fight for survival. He fought to erase. The hotel lobby reeked of lemon disinfectant and industrial failure. Monica sat in the corner by the vending machines, cross-legged in last week's blazer, a carry-on at her feet and 2 suitcases beside her that looked bigger than her current life. Her phone trembled in her hand. The screen lit up with Dennis's name. She hadn't spoken to him in days. She hadn't spoken to anyone in days. The silence wasn't just around her. It was inside her now, thick and humming. Her first night at the hotel, she told herself it was temporary. She'd figure it out. Get a grip. Fix it. By the second night, the minibar was empty. Room service ignored, and the mirror across from the bed had become something she avoided. It didn't lie. It just showed her the version of herself no one wanted to sit next to anymore. This morning she tried Rachel again. Blocked. She tried her sister. I don't want to be in the middle. Even Greg had ghosted. His last message, you should talk to your husband. This is too messy. Now, sitting in the stale hum of that lobby, watching families check in, businessmen pace with Bluetooth earpieces, a woman laughing into a call by the fireplace, Monica finally understood what Dennis had done. Not just left her, not just exposed her. He'd made sure there was nothing left to crawl back to. No fallback job, no friends, no home, and worst of all, no illusion. She stared at the phone for a long time before pressing call. It rang once, twice, then, "Hello." His voice was low, calm, tired but not sad. "Dennis," she choked out. "Please. I'm sorry. I was stupid. I lost everything. I lost you. I know that now." Silence. Then finally, "You didn't lose everything, Monica." She held her breath. "You gave it away for a laugh." She blinked hard, but the tears came anyway. Hot, fast, unstoppable. He didn't raise his voice, didn't linger, just quietly added, "I used to think I wasn't enough for you. Turns out I was too much, too present, too loyal, too blind." "Dennis," she whispered. Click. The line went dead. She stared at the screen, her reflection faint in the black glass. The call hadn't even lasted a full minute. She let the phone slide from her hand and hit the floor. The hum of the vending machine filled the silence again. Somewhere near the front desk, a toddler squealed with delight. A couple was checking in, arguing about whether to order Thai or Italian. Monica didn't move. She sat there for hours, shoulders shaking, arms wrapped around herself like armor that no longer worked. At some point, a bellhop asked if she needed help. She shook her head and pointed to the elevators. Room 403, booked for 3 nights. The room wasn't hers. It never would be. Just a space between what she had and what she no longer deserved. The gate creaked when she pushed it open. It always had, but she used to tell Dennis to leave it that way. Said it gave the house character. Now the sound scraped across her nerves. It had been a full week. 7 days since the lobby. 7 days since he hung up. 7 days since she checked out of the hotel and wandered through half a dozen dead ends. An Airbnb she couldn't afford past 2 nights. An ex-colleague who offered sympathy but no couch. A sister who told her over speakerphone, "Maybe this is what rock bottom looks like for you." And now this. One last pilgrimage. She still had the spare garage code. He hadn't changed it. A part of her took that as a sign, a thread she could pull. The door opened easily, too easily. Inside, silence. The kind of silence that only comes when something has been emptied, not just vacated, erased. No photos on the walls. No keys on the hook. No hint of his cologne drifting in from the bathroom. The kitchen was spotless, cabinets open, empty. Not like someone had packed in a hurry, like someone had planned. The living room was stripped to its bones. The couch was gone. The rug she picked out at that flea market, rolled, vanished. Even the bookshelves had been dismantled. Only the walls remembered what had hung there. But the bedroom door was shut. She stood in front of it for a long moment, hand trembling above the knob, already knowing that opening it wouldn't lead to salvation. Only confirmation. She pushed. The room was perfectly staged, bed made, corners tucked tight like a military barracks. Nothing else. No note, no suitcase, no clothes. Not a single item of shared life. Except for one thing, centered perfectly on her pillow, a frame. Inside, a single piece of white paper, her words in bold font, ink darker than anything else in the room. "I'd totally cheat if I knew I wouldn't get caught." And underneath, handwritten in Dennis's precise, cold penmanship, "Now you know." That was it. No signature, no date, just finality. She let out a sound, something between a gasp and a wail. Her knees gave out. She fell forward onto the bed, face pressed to the sheets that no longer smelled like anyone. And she screamed, not because of what was written, but because it was all that was left. He hadn't just walked away. He had left her trapped inside her own punchline. And for the first time in her life, Monica understood the shape of a man's quiet rage. Not fire, not fists, not chaos, absence. She gambled her life on a laugh, and Dennis had let her. Then watched her lose. Because sometimes the worst revenge is making sure they live with it.